Hey, folks. Thank you so much for listening. If you like this podcast, please rate and review on Apple Podcasts. It really helps us get as seen by as many eyeballs as possible. You can also directly support Sex Talk as a super fan on Patreon. Just go to patreon.com/Sex Talk with Erica Miley. And for just the cost of a cup of coffee, y'all, you should know I love my coffee. You help Sex Talk with editing, hosting, and getting the word out to others just like you. Help to spread curiosity about sex and keep the knowledge bombs dropping to everybody that has or wants to have sex. And a big thank you to those of you who've already become super fans. You're rock stars, and I so appreciate you. That's patreon.com/Sex Talk with Erica Miley. All right, let's get into the episode.
Sex Talk, Erica Miley, 'cause sexuality is tough. And okay, sex just isn't good enough, no. Sex Talk with Erica Miley.
Hey, folks, welcome to Sex Talk with Erica Miley. Erica Miley here. Y'all, I brought you some real nerd shit today. Real wonderful. I brought you Ola Midzynska, CEO and founder of Sex Tech from Berlin, the one and only conference where deep tech connects with the internet of all the sex things. Many of my listeners know that I am quite the nerd myself. Video games are one of my pastimes. I love nerdy things like Star Trek and Star Wars, but I have never really, in an earnest way, seen sex and tech put together in a cohesive way. And you've done that. I personally think you've done that beautifully. And you have this wonderful story.
Thank you.
And I could just sit here and talk and talk and talk. Thank you for just being here. Thanks, Ola. I appreciate you coming.
Thank you so much for having me here. That's a real pleasure. Thank you.
So this personal story that has led you down the path to shape yourself, you as a whole person, as a sexual person. Tell me a little bit about that.
Yeah, sure. I'm often really enjoying to talk exactly about this story because, as you just said, it's sort of important to know how you're shaped as a sexual identity and what does it mean to you if the sexual identity and sexuality in whatever broader picture cross one day your professional life as well, which happened clearly in my life. And there's no accidents, like coincidental situations that it had to happen that way in my case.
Mm-hmm.
The story started in one of the post-Soviet countries. I am a first child of very young democracy of Poland. I was born in communist time and I experienced the transition from the communism into, the first baby steps into democracy. But when the systems are changing, it takes decades for societies to adopt to new values. And those values are later on being implicated in the educational systems and society as a whole, and so on and so on.
So you grow up with a country that was growing up.
I grew up with a country that's still, I would say, it's still in this very baby steps of growing up towards democracy, because it's only 30 years of that process. But that's a great metaphor, actually. Yeah, we started together,
Yes, we totally started together. I think that's a beautiful image of how we are culturally shaped, and they're deeply connected for you and how you are here today. So when did the journey towards sex tech really start?
It really started from the very first understanding, my very early age of being, 14, 15, that something doesn't work well with the equality of rights of the position in female from the perspective of the role in society, female from the perspective of the reproductive health, female from the perspective of pleasure, because no one back then was even there to say that there is a zone called female pleasure and that you have a right to A, experience that, B, not feel ashamed, C, not being judged. Yeah. And that was very, very strongly, it still is, I have to say, developed in the mentality of the people from the East, and the more Catholic Church suppressed you as a society, the more suppressed people you have, but less educated.
Oh, we in the US know a little bit about that too. We we absolutely know.
Yeah. We share a lot. We definitely share a lot of that, in that regards. And that was suppressing me because as a very young girl, I understood that I just can't have sex, I just
Mhm,
can't have sex without having a boyfriend, without being labeled that this guy is zoning me. So
mhm.
I belong basically to this dude by the fact that I just want to have sex. Because otherwise, if I would do that, if I would liberate myself freely and say, oh my God, I'm 17, I just discovered the first orgasm and I want to have a lot of them, I'll be,
Mhm.
of course, labeled as a slut, as a whore, as a girl, the girl that no one would like to hang out with. That was raising up something in me that led me in the first steps to be just activist in the first position. I started to recognize there are female communities, and they were very much subculture because they were really belonging to beautiful times of hardcore, grindcore music and DIY kids and straight edge culture, and I was lucky to be part of this growing culture in my country, and it does really open up a lot to me. And then I understood back then, whenever we were going for protests or when we were, organizing some actions, writing zines like illegal newspapers, stuff like that I knew that I don't know if I'm going to end up in art, I'm going to end up in science, I'm going to end up in tech, or whatever I'm going to fucking end up in my life. I'm always going to keep those values.
Yes, I think when you, come from these punk rock places, like, the zine culture, the resistance that you're raised with is just it stays with you. It stays with you forever, and I was definitely, especially around middle school, that punk rock culture was deep in my bones too, so I understand that it really sounds like this connection to you watching what's happening,
Yeah,
especially for women,
yeah.
that, "Oh, I want to have orgasms. I want to have all of those things. And I don't think I should be punished for that." You smelled that out early in your life.
Because I was lucky enough to end up in those communities, and for me, it was super empowering moment when we could see the guys on stage screaming for female rights.
Yeah.
And the moment when you understand that there are guys also like supporting you, and they are not ashamed to say that they're feminists
Hmm.
and they're on your side for your rights. That was really beginning of me and myself, also as my sexual identity, because then I understood that there's many people in this world I will meet in the future. I will travel, I will discover new cultures, but I will have this base in me wherever I go.
Yeah.
And when I think what started about sex, I mean, sex tech, back then there was nothing like sex tech, of course, but
Right.
I'm talking about the base of understanding how important female rights and equality rights and the abortion rights and contraception access rights were important for me back then already. And that kept growing and evolving in my future projects in life, I guess.
I can feel, as you're describing this, I can feel the straight line from punk rock through feminism and watching it on stage, bringing it into your own life and your own soul and your own values, and then how that developed throughout your life. When would you say that you really started to kind of develop more of a voice and being willing to speak out?
Yeah, definitely. I mean, there's also a lot of important aspects about the learning of minorities
Mm,
because in the times of our school education, forget that we ever had sex education. I mean, even today, the sex education is the poorest aspect of all the societies because there's never enough funding, there's never enough politicians who would like to reform this area and so on. Back then, it was the same. So, not much changed in those 30 something years. But the concept of understanding the society also consists of minorities. And the minorities are often not heard because they're never going to be loud because no one's going to give them the microphone to say what they want to say. This was also very important for me to observe and learn, and especially from understanding of LGBTQ and how hard it is for those communities still in a lot of countries in the world.
yes, absolutely. Here, I mean, and you and I were talking before we started recording that where we here in the US have definitely had a parallel experience, and we are still reckoning with how we have harmed people of color, how we have harmed the LGBTQ. I've been recently on TikTok. There's this trend of the LGBTQ community calling themselves the alphabet mafia. I was like, I am here for this. The alphabet mafia. Yes. Okay. Let's do that. So, but how did you get to the place where you thought, like, what brought you to being the founder of such a, you just bringing these two things that so wonderfully need to be together? We need to understand our human story through sex, and then how does it interact with technology? How did you get to that?
I was working in the deep tech area for over a decade in my life, which meant I was working my work based on the support deep tech startups from a lot of different angles of it, like big data, cybersecurity, artificial intelligence, sustainability, and so on. Bring those startups to the market, match make them with the corporate partners, and develop the best innovative technological solutions. And you can imagine this is also very often, this nerdy world is often very male dominated.
And very misogynistic in a lot of ways.
And very white skin.
Mm-hmm.
Often the people who code, the people who are behind the big data, they're often from the same class of society. They often male and they're often white, and they often have the one way of thinking. And because coding is still not in elementary schooling as a mathematics or biology accessible to everyone, that's how we still are, and that's how it is. For me, working in that field was always very inspiring, because I love to discover new technologies and how they serve to people and how they can make our life better. But in that journey, I heard the first time about the connection with artificial intelligence and sexuality 5 years ago. And that was the product, Harmony AI, which is the product of the Realbotics company. And that was the sex bot back then. The newest version of Siri and Alexa could not even compare to what Harmony could do. But that was a robot designed also, of course, for sexual pleasure, but in a way also as a companionship. And no one wanted to talk about that product. No one wanted to have it on the stages of all over the conferences. Nowhere. It was so taboo, stigmatized, and I found particular interest in that. And I started to study this particular product myself as a researcher. And then from there, I started to discover that there are technologies already called like bleeding edge, like cutting edge technologies that are developing something very, very interesting. And that was, I think, the first years when term sex tech started to be shown somewhere, but still not really, like nobody back then knew what it is. Is it porn? Is it like Pornhub with sex tech? Like what those people do? Are there sex workers that, I don't know, are there webcam people? Like what's that? People were confused. I was confused. And that's why I started to reach out for all the people I could potentially find from that area, people who are product designers of the sex toys or own their companies, how they develop those sex toys to be more technologically approachable, what changed in the sex toy sector, why now we have so many, new products in the market, but we didn't have anything 10 years ago, and how this all sexual wellness industry started to add technology on the top and started to create a new product. Mm-hmm. And imagine there was a lot of females. And I was like, what the fuck? Like, excuse me, like, this is amazing. Like, so actually, this particular segment already was covered by female founders, product designers.
But I think that says something about us as leaders of wanting to break a lot of these chains, wanting to express ourselves in a different way, and being, for lack of a better way to put it, like being a little unafraid and maybe being a little punk rock. Let's pull that right in, because that's right part of your life.
Yeah.
Like, how does that kind of punk rock attitude play here in sex tech?
And then it was exactly, I found this space, and I found this space where there's a lot of freedom. There's a lot to do. What's most important, there's a lot of technology that needs to be developed, a technology that is not serving for human pleasure, but also for the reproductive health, female health, for the all wellness part, sexual well-being part, which is super important. And I was like, just give me a minute, I'm there, because I know that this is my space. Like, I work in tech for so many years, And this is something that I can say the sex tech came to me as this, very fresh wave of some revolutionary heat. It was a time when I sensed there's a lot of space for female voice, for femininity that was kept from being in the first position for decades. If you look at the adult business, for example, so I was feeling this is innovative, this is worth of me now transfer from one angle to another and start to develop something on the side.
Hey, quick break from the action. Sorry for interrupting y'all, but it's important to acknowledge that life has become seriously difficult for many of you these days. With the world feeling chaotic, I mean, I don't know about you, but a pandemic sure did it for me. So many big feelings about all of it and the state of our world. It's impacted our daily lives, it's hindered us from planning, and interrupted our mental and sexual health. I just want to take a minute to remind you that I'm not just a sex nerd. I'm a mental health therapist, and I have a team of other like-minded, badass therapists that are able to help you out. All my therapists are experienced and have been trained around sexuality, along with direct consultation with me if they need it. My mental health practice is completely online, so you can stay your butt at home and you don't have to park anywhere. It's really great that way. With the lighter restrictions because of the pandemic, we're able to serve more people all over the United States and expats living all over the world and immigrants from all over the world. Just head to mentalandsexualhealth.com and sign up for a free consultation. I'm adding more highly trained therapists regularly, all comfortable with talking about sex. Again, that's mentalandsexualhealth.com. Okay, let's get you back to the show. I think it's incredible and does show like that deep underwater river that runs through you of belief in just equality and wanting to be able to do and feel heard, much like everybody else out here in the world, right? We just want some orgasms, y'all. Like, this isn't tough. So, like, if we were to break it down for folks who are listening who've never really come into contact with sex and technology, other than like the spaces you're talking about, like in porn or camming or whatever the case may be, like, can you break it down, like what the sex tech conference really is, that focus? What is the focus of the sex tech conference?
So basically, the sex tech industry is, in a very short sentence, the industry that enhances technology to develop human sexuality. So we are covering a lot of technological development in the ranges of various categories. So starting from immersive entertainment, going through artificial intelligence, then educational platforms and apps for adult and different ages sex education, supporting therapists and medical communities by exactly giving them access to the technology so they can use it with their final customer as well. And then, of course, all this big segment and sector of innovative and beautiful sex toys that we have finally access these days. That also, of course, refers to e-commerce, which is the place and the platform. Thanks to e-commerce, things change beyond the point of recognition, because now we can ship those beautiful products all over the world in intimate and safe way. So basically what we do in this conference, we bring professionals who are working in this industry from all of those umbrella of things, different categories. We put them together and we support their business and their development in technology so they could grow together as a big ecosystem, be better and create better products. And we search for innovators in the field. So we work very close with newbies and startups in the market. We matchmake them with the investors. We help them to pitch their product to the corporate partners. Basically, what we really do, we try to create ecosystem in this industry.
Right. I'm hearing the creation of access. That is what I'm hearing from you, is this creation of access, of being able to take expertise and put it out there in a world so that we can all access it. So how do you think sex education matters here? Because
that's the first.
I think that's first step, right? Like, I think shame deconstruction starts with education, right?
I love your thinking, because this is the fundamental part, which is always underinvested, which is always kept in the dark corner, and the politicians and administration professionals are never put enough attention to it. And if they won't, it doesn't matter how our technology will be developed, how what amazing products we will develop. If we do not educate from the young age about a self-awareness, self-acceptance, pleasure in its own terrain, a pleasure for pleasure, not because of a productive health, but you as a young body, this is your anatomy, and this also gives you pleasure. Please feel free to not feel ashamed. If we don't have systems for that and tools, we have another generation educated on the Pornhub. Then we have another generation that in the very late years will start to break the taboo to purchase this beautiful product that we just designed, means the sex toy or app or platform or whatever. There's another generation of taboo, of stigma, of shame, of lack in communication between the partners, cheating issues, ending up in therapy if you're lucky, or because you can afford or you have the therapist. So the sex education is a base. Why we can't support this from the tech side? Because no one at the end want to pay for it.
Yeah.
We can create platforms to educate parents. We can create platforms for like global education, but we, as a product innovators, we create product that we put on the market, and the product needs to get an investor, and the product needs to be sold. That's why the customer in this product should be administration level governments that invest in the local communities and schools for those exactly tools that we are ready to make.
Yes. We need it. We need it so badly.
Badly.
Like you said, like shame is the dictator that gets folks to try to find any kind of information that can support them in any way. But oftentimes the information they access doubles down on that shame, especially if your only education that you ever get is porn. And porn's great, but it's performance, not education. That's the trouble here. Especially when people are watching that and go, I can't move my leg that way. Why can't I do what I see on that TV?
Am I normal? And then
am I normal? Exactly. So I do want to make sure that we touch on, we are sitting here in the middle of December as we record this, and we're all still dealing with COVID. And I know the conference state of the world has changed. I went from going to do conferences this year and speaking conferences this year to have to do everything online. What has that been like as far as organization and creativity for you and your organization?
It was a hell.
Best description. Hell on earth. Mm-hmm.
Welcome to hell. It was unpredictable, tiring, exhausting, draining everybody and making everyone crazy process. Because as far as you can, based on your business strategy, marketing strategy, when the times are normal, in this case, you can't. On the regulations, which are practically, in our case, were changing every 2 months in Berlin, because there were like governmental regulations, there were local regulations, there were international regulations that clearly are not stable, and you can't foresee what's in the corner. This process of creation was all the time on the edge of burnout. For me personally, this year ended, and as an entrepreneur, as a person who leads this project, and I'm not ashamed of talking about my emotional weakness, it ended with burnout.
Oh, I'm with you. We're sitting here together. We are in our comfy clothes. I can't, by the end of I would say 3:00, I can't think anymore. I'm right there with you. I'm burnt the fuck out. And it zaps your entrepreneurial creativity. What was that like for you to acknowledge?
Yeah, you see, I'm also this type of person is very, very fight till the end. I really have these capacities in me. I really, I can be kicked in the ass and I get up.
There's that punk rock.
I can shake off from traumas of that type quickly. But problem is that when you kicked too many times and too hard, that it can break you. And you need to also have this entrepreneurial safety, whatever project you do, to tell yourself, look, you've done 100%. This is fucking COVID. You could not do it better. And if this is the best lesson for me, really from this year, when I'm in the moment of evaluating how it was, how hard we work as a team, how fucking hard we work, how many times we failed, that all you can do after that is to say to yourself, thank you that you survived.
Yes. We
Thank you.
survived or are surviving because we're not done yet.
We're surviving. And your team survived. And you survived. And now you're going to have a Christmas. And you don't think about it till next 3 weeks. Because
Yep.
then it's back.
Then we're back at trying to manage all of the existence in the face of this. And I think I'm really glad that you're talking about how things change so rapidly and how you heard that, because I think our listeners across the world need to hear that this is our shared experience. That if your libido's down and you're not interested in having sex, it's a big part of it is because of this.
And it's all right. The best thing is it's also okay and you're normal.
Yes, you're normal. Oh my gosh. So I feel like it has been such a blessing to get to talk to you, and I really want people to be able to find you and find what's happening for you in the world. How do people find you in this crazy ass world we got?
Sure. The easiest way is, of course, to reach us by the website, which is sxtecheu.eu. You can also search our brand by SX. This is not sex, it's SX. That's important. Tech
Mhm.
EU on the platforms as Twitter and the Instagram and LinkedIn as well. And my name is Ola Midzynska, but you can also reach me by Ola SX Tech EU on the Instagram. So yeah, feel free to reach out and ask us any question about the tech and sex and COVID and whatever comes to your mind. We're here.
Right? It's like we're sitting down over here. That's all we can do. Thank you. Thank you
Thank you
so
so much.
much for being here with me today. Folks, everything that Ola mentioned will be in the show notes for you to be able to find easily.
I'm gonna take a picture.
Yes, we're selfieing. All right, folks. Thank you for sticking around, and we will see you next time.